Hi, in this video we are going to discuss how to use one trigonometric ratio to find others. So in this case we may or may not be in quadrant 1 and you need to understand how to do that. So let's start with this problem. Sine theta is 3/4 and cotangent theta is positive. This is actually a very important piece of information. So if sine is positive, that means we can be in quadrants 1 or quadrants 2 because sine is associated with the y-coordinate. Cotangent being positive means you're in quadrants 1 or quadrant 3. That means we are actually going to be in quadrant 1. So in quadrant 1 all the functions are positive. And then what we do next, we're going to draw a triangle, a right triangle. We're going to put our angle theta here, and we have sine, so it's opposite over hypotenuse, which means this can be labeled as 3, this can be labeled as 4. That means this side by Pythagorean theorem will be square root of 7. Okay, and we just have to find all the other ratios. So cosine theta will be square root of 7 over 4, adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent theta is going to be opposite over adjacent, so 3 divided by square root of 7, which is going to be 3 square root of 7 over 7. Cotangent theta will be the reciprocal of that, so square root of 7 over 3. Secant theta will be a hypotenuse over adjacent, so 4 divided by square root of 7, which is going to be 4 square root of 7 over 7. And cosecant theta will be opposite, hypotenuse over opposite, which is 4/3. So we're done with that. This one's pretty simple. Let's move on to the next problem. So here we have cosine theta being negative 1/3. Where is cosine going to be negative? Cosine is associated with the x-coordinate, so these are quadrants 2 or 3. Cosecant is positive, so if cosecant is positive, that means we're going to be, cosecant is associated with the sine, which is the y-coordinate, so that would be quadrants 2 or 1 or 2, correct? And that means we are going to be in quadrant 2. So in quadrant 2 we have to watch out for some of the signs. So let's draw a triangle. We still need a triangle that's going to help us with that. We do not put the negative number anywhere. We are going to look at cosine. So if this is angle theta, this is going to be 1, this is going to be 3. We do not do anything with the negative sign. So this side is going to be square root of 8, which is actually going to be 2 square root of 2. So here's what I propose we do here. Sine theta, we are in quadrant 2. Sine is going to be positive. Tangent theta, we are in quadrant 2 where tangent is going to be negative. Cotangent is also going to be negative. Secant is associated with cosine, which is going to be negative as well. And cosecant is going to be, as we already know, positive. This is what I suggest we do. This way we will not make a mistake, hopefully, with the signs. So sine is going to be, with sine we have opposite over hypotenuse, that's going to be 2 square root of 2 over 3. Tangent is opposite over adjacent and it's negative, so negative 2 square root of 2. Cotangent is going to be the reciprocal of that, so it's negative 1 over 2 square root of 2, which is going to be negative square root of 2 over 4. Secant is going to be the reciprocal of cosine, which is going to be negative 3. And cosecant is going to be the reciprocal of sine, which is going to be 3 square root of 2 over 4. Okay. Next example, we have tangent that's 7/3 and cosine is negative. So tangent is positive in quadrants 1 and 3. Cosine is negative in quadrants 2 or 3. So that places us in quadrant 3. So let's make a triangle. Right triangle, put angle theta here. So we are given a tangent that's opposite over adjacent, and the hypotenuse will be square root of 58. So let's check the signs. So we are in quadrant 3. Sine is going to be negative. Cosine, we already know, is negative. Tangent we have. Cotangent is going to be positive. Secant is going to be negative, and cosecant is going to be negative as well. This is all from the fact that it's quadrant 3. So let's do an easy one. Cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, so it's 3 over 7. Sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so it's negative 7 over square root of 58, or it's going to be negative 7 square root of 58 divided by 58. Right? Cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be negative 3 square root of 58 over 58. Secant is going to be hypotenuse over adjacent, negative square root of 58 over 3. And cosecant is going to be adjacent over opposite, hypotenuse over opposite, so square root of 58 over 7, negative. Okay. Move on to our next example. So in this one we are given that cotangent theta is negative 1/5 and sine is positive. So when cotangent is negative, we are in quadrant 2 or quadrant 4, right? And sine is positive, it's going to be quadrants 1 and 2. So all in all, we're going to be in quadrant 2. Our auxiliary triangle, angle theta. So cotangent, it's 1, 5. Remember, we disregarded the sine. This side is going to end up being 2 square root of 6. So let's go through the fact that it's quadrant 2 and see if we can figure out all the signs. So sine theta in quadrant 2, sine is going to be positive. Cosine theta in quadrant 2 is negative. Tangent theta is going to be negative. Cotangent we have. Secant is going to be negative because it's the reciprocal of cosine. And cosecant theta is going to be positive, it's the reciprocal of sine. Okay. All we need to do now is figure out the ratios. So for sine, it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So it's going to be 5 over 2 square root of 6 positive, which is going to give us 5 square root of 6 over 12. For cosine, it's going to be negative adjacent over hypotenuse, negative 1 over 2 square root of 6, which is going to be negative square root of 6 over 12. Tangent is the reciprocal of cotangent, so negative 5. Secant is hypotenuse over adjacent, negative 2 square root of 6. And cosecant is the reciprocal of, cosecant is going to be the reciprocal of either cosine, or you can do hypotenuse over opposite, which is going to be 2 square root of 6 over 5. Okay. So let's move on. We got our one last problem. So secant theta is 4, so it's a positive number, and tangent is negative. Tangent is going to be negative in quadrants 2 and 4. Where is secant negative? Secant is going to be negative wherever cosine is negative. Those are going to be quadrants 2 and 3, right? So again, tangent is negative in quadrants 2 and 4. Secant, which is related to cosine, is going to be negative in quadrants 2 and 3 because that's related to an x-coordinate. So we are going to be in quadrant 2, right? So we're gonna make our auxiliary triangle. We'll label our angle theta. So secant is hypotenuse over opposite, right? No, secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. And then this side is going to be square root of 15. So in quadrant 2, what do we know? We know that sine in quadrant 2 is positive. We know that cosine in quadrant 2 is negative. We know that tangent is negative. That's already given to us. Cotangent is also going to be negative. And cosecant is going to be, in quadrant 2, it's tied with the x coordinate, so it is going to be negative as well, right? So that's, no, we have something is wrong. Let's see. No, I think we're good. I think we're good. So sine is going to be positive, is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, square root of 15 over 4. Cosine is going to be a negative, adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 1/4. Tangent is negative, opposite over adjacent, negative square root of 15. Cotangent is the reciprocal of that, so it's going to be negative square root of 15 over 15. And cosecant is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 4 divided by square root of 15, so it's going to be negative 4 square root of 15 over 15. Okay, and that's all.